All right, so now we're going to talk about the ever mysterious on preset change buttons. Well, it's actually not as complicated as you would think. I did a little experimentation with it, and it's pretty straightforward. So let's talk about what this is. In the majority of the cases, you can treat these two checkboxes as a single checkbox. In other words, either they're both going to be on or they're both going to be off. The only reason you'd need to have this update state on preset change separate is if in your system you have something communicating back to the PBC. Like let's say you have an AxeFX or a Kemper or Ableton Live or something, and you want to give it control of your buttons. So you want it to be able to change, the state of your buttons, whether they're on and off. If that's the case, I'm not covering that in this video. But for the rest of us, all you need to worry about is just treat these two as a group. They're always on together or they're off together. Okay, the key word here is preset change. So these are IA buttons, and IA buttons run IA actions. And these are the IA actions. These are the things that happen when you tap on the button. When you tap on the button, this always happens, regardless of how these checkboxes are set. These will always run. These checkboxes basically determine whether these actions are run when you change presets. Let's say this button is turned on. I'll go ahead and simulate it here. Tape delay. So the tape delay is turned on, and you save it to this preset trem spring. Okay, preset number 6. Now, when you come back and you navigate to trem spring, and this is saved in its on state, what's going to happen is these actions are going to fire. It's going to go ahead and turn on. It's going to recall preset 26 on the Nemesis, and anything in that group is going to fire. So it's also going to turn that loop on. If you uncheck these, when you recall the preset, it's going to ignore these actions. So I think this is best illustrated by an example. So let me show you an example. Okay, so I set up a little scenario here. When I'm in preset 1, none of the loops are open. When I go to preset 2, loop 8 will open, and the Nemesis will switch to its analog preset. When I go to preset 3, loop 8 will stay open, and the Nemesis will switch to its digital delay preset. So if I go back to my digital delay preset, and I navigate over to my delay page, and I turn off that delay, okay, and then I save that, and navigate back to my presets, when I come back to that preset, it remembers that it was off. So the actions that were defined here happened, and there's two actions here. There are switching presets on the delay, and in my globals, opening and closing the loop. Okay, let's look at what happens when I uncheck these checkboxes. That's analog, and then for digital. And let me save that and transfer it to the device. Okay, now we go back to the pedal, and okay, so delay, we're on preset 2, which is analog delay. The loop is open, analog delay is selected there, and I'll go ahead and switch to my digital delay by switching presets. And loop 8 is still open, but look, it's still on analog on the pedal. So why didn't it change the setting on the pedal? Well, the reason why I didn't do that is because with these unchecked right here, these actions didn't get fired. So it just stayed on wherever it was before when I switched presets. When the preset recalled, when I switched presets, it just ignored all of these actions right here. Back to the pedal. Let me go ahead and manually go in there and turn on my digital delay. Okay, and I'll go back to my preset page. And now you'll see that digital delay is on right there. And if I flip back and forth, this pedal doesn't change. It's still on digital delay. I'll go back in here and I'll switch digital back to analog. You'll see that the pedal switch back to analog. So whenever I tap these buttons, it does what it's supposed to do. But when I switch presets, it doesn't. And that's what on preset change is all about. It's all about what happens when you switch presets. What happens when you switch presets, what happens to these actions on the buttons? Do you want the presets to trigger those buttons as if you pressed on them? Then you would go over here and check those two checkboxes. If you want a preset not to trigger these actions, you would uncheck these checkboxes. Okay, so now that we understand how that works, let's tie that in with an example of where you might want to use it. So I'm going to go ahead and go to this page that we created, and let me change one of these functions here. I'm going to change bank down to an IA button, and let's make it an infinite hold button for a delay. New action. I'm going to send a CC toggle message to my delay pedal. Let's go look for infinite hold. That is 97, and I'm sure that's fine. So cool. So now we've created an infinite hold button right there. So when we press that, the delay will just kind of will be like a pad in the background that you can play over. Cool. But notice that I left these on preset change checkboxes checked. So what would happen if you're playing along and you go ahead and enable infinite hold on your device, and then you hit save on this preset number 3 that we're on right now. And then you navigate back to preset number 2. And then when you come back to preset 3, what's going to happen? That hold is going to turn on because we have these checkboxes checked. So if you're on a preset and then you navigate to another preset, and let's say you didn't have your delay on, and you go to a preset and it turns on your infinite hold, you're not going to hear any delay. You're going to be like, where's my delay? Or if you had delay running and then you navigate to a preset with infinite hold, all of a sudden it's going to be holding that delay, and you're wondering why that's going to happen. That would be a good case for unchecking this. So that way you can tap your infinite hold, and the state of this button, whether it's on or off, will not get stored to the preset. Okay, so we've taken a little bit of the mystery out of on preset change. Let's talk about some button behavior that I think is really good to know. Momentary and hold. So let's talk about momentary first, so we can get into what on press and on release is. And then we'll use that information to look at the hold button and see how the hold button changes button behavior. So I think we all have kind of an idea what a momentary button is, but let me go ahead and explain it in this way. When you have momentary unselected, what happens here is whatever action you have selected here, regardless of what it is, when you press the button the first time, this is going to happen. And when you press the button again, this is going to happen. For example, if we go to something simple like turning on a pedal just by opening up its loop, with momentary unchecked, we press the button once and the pedal will come on, and then we press the button again and the pedal will come off. With momentary, it changes to on press and on release. So with momentary checked, this on value fires when you press the button, and this off value fires when you release the button. So with that in mind, let's take a look at the hold function of a button. So what I'm going to do, actually I'm going to put hold over here. Let's say I want to turn on one more overdrive. So I'm going to go ahead, this one turns on my loop 6, which is my Archer pedal. And if I enable hold, I have another tab here, which determines what happens when you press and hold the button. So let's say for this one, I'm going to go ahead and open up my rat. And I'll give it an on color of green. And I'm going to go ahead and open up my loop 5, which is where my rat is. Let me go to audio number 5. Okay, so when I tap the button normally, it's going to do this. It's going to open up, let's uncheck that. When I tap the button normally, it's going to open loop 6. When I tap and hold the button for a predetermined amount of time, it's going to open up loop 5. What is that predetermined amount of time? Well, it's 1200 milliseconds, I believe, by default, because I don't think I changed it. And this is, if you look in the global tab here, you can set the hold time to whatever you want it to be. I've used MIDI controllers before where the hold fired too quickly, and I would inadvertently make things happen that I didn't want to have happen. The cool thing about this is you can configure it. If you like it really fast, you can get it all the way down to 500 milliseconds. And if you like it slow, you can get it down to a ridiculous 3 seconds long, which is a long time. So you have a lot of range in here to work with. I found that 1200 milliseconds is actually working very, very well for me. So let me go ahead and up this, though, to the maximum of 3 seconds, or 3000 milliseconds, and kind of illustrate what happens when you use hold. if I tap and hold the button for 3 full seconds, this secondary function will fire. And if I just tap the button normally, this primary function will fire. But there's a difference in button behavior that you have to be aware of. Because now that we have a hold button, a hold function on this button, the system has to determine whether you're going for the hold function or you're just going for the normal function, the primary function. Well, if it just fired the primary function the instant that you tap the button, you would never be able to get to the hold function. The only way it's going to know that you're going for the primary function and not the hold function, it's going to wait for you to release your foot off the button to fire that primary function. So let me illustrate this with a scenario. I've got the hold time set to 3 seconds. So let's say, for example, that I put my foot on the button and I hold it down for 2 full seconds, and then I release my foot. What's going to happen is the primary function is going to fire. But that primary function didn't fire until I released my foot off the button. Therefore, when I pressed the button and I held it for 1,000, 2, 1,000, and then released the button, during that first 2 seconds, nothing happened until I took my foot off the button. In contrast, with a button like this, when I tap the button, the instant that I tap the button, these actions will run, the very instant. In the case of a hold button, its primary function, these actions will only run when I release my foot off the button. So what happens when you have a hold function enabled on a button, then it changes its primary function to on release instead of on press. Now imagine that with tap tempo. With tap tempo, I don't have a hold function on my tap tempo. So when I tap that tap tempo button, it's going to send that tap pulse the very instant that I press the button. But if I went ahead and enabled hold on that button, even though I'm not using the hold function, when I tap this button, that tap pulse isn't going to happen until I release my foot off the button. So for tap tempo, I like that pulse to be sent the instant that I tap the button. So I would never put a hold function on a tap tempo button. If you're one of those people that like the tap to be fired when you lift your foot off the button on the release, then you would go ahead and enable a hold function on that button, even if you weren't using that hold function for anything. All right, so I want to wrap this up, this discussion up on local button pages. We talk so much about button pages. I don't want to leave local button pages out. So here we are. I'm looking at a presets page. So like our regular button page, our 16 button pages that we have here, it's just a blank slate of 11 buttons that we can have do whatever we want them to do. These button pages are global. They can be used anywhere. You could reuse these. The local button pages are tied to a specific preset. So how would you use a local button page on a preset? Looking at this is my regular preset page that's loaded here. Preset show page number 6. That's my presets page. And I have my bank down over here and my bank up and all my navigation across the top. And then I got my 4 presets in the middle and my tap tempo. Okay, let's say for preset 11, I'm going to set up preset 11 for clean sound. I'm just going to have my compressor and plate reverb. And that's it. So those are the 2 things that are going to be on for preset 11. In which case, I don't need tap tempo for preset 11. But what would be really nice for this particular preset is if I could hit a boost or an overdrive pedal for solos. So since I'm not using the tap tempo button here, I could just go ahead and edit this page, edit that button for this particular preset only. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and select local page here and turn this into a local button page. And you'll see here it turned into a blank slate, just like when we navigated to the empty button pages on the buttons tab. Okay, edit local buttons. So I got nothing here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy from my page 6, which is my presets page. Copy it to the current page. Okay, now I've got all that stuff back. I'm in edit mode. So I can go ahead and double click my tap tempo here and change it to something else. But instead of having tap tempo, I'm just going to take that off, put these guys back on, and change this to, I'm going to call this lead boost, or just lead. And blue and black is fine. Let's make it green. And I'm going to go ahead and add some actions here. I'm just going to open up audio loop number 6. So I got my archer handling my lead there. And let's put a little delay on it. So I will go ahead and do a PC message to my nemesis. And on. Off will be none. And then I need to open up that loop for the... that's perfect for my nemesis. So now for my lead, I'm going to open up my archer. I'm going to open up the loop for my nemesis. Let me just reorder that. Navigate to the analog delay. And then let's go ahead and add another action because I don't want that plate reverb on, let's say. So I don't want the plate reverb for my Ventress. So what I'm going to do is just close that loop. Audio, loop 9. Let's close it. And then when we're done with it, we'll open it back up again. And I don't want that compressor on either. So I'm going to add another action. And I'm going to say audio, loop 5. No, loop 4 on my system is the compressor. Same thing. I'm going to turn it off. And then when I'm done with it, I'm going to turn it back on again. So what's going to happen here is when I press this button, it's going to turn on the archer. It's going to turn on the delay. It's going to look at the on messages here. So it's going to turn on the archer, loop 6. It's going to open up the delay loop. It's going to send a message to the delay to load the preset number 2 on the delay, which is my analog. It's going to close the loop number 9 where my reverb is, and it's going to close loop number 4 where the compressor is. And then when I click the button again to turn it off, these off messages fire. It's going to turn off loop 6, so it closes the archer out. It's going to turn off loop 8, so the nemesis or the delay will no longer sound. It's not going to do anything here with the preset on the nemesis. And on loop number 9, it's going to turn it back on again, so our reverb will come back on, and loop number 4, it'll turn that back on again, so our compressor will come back on. Everything will return back to the way it was before, and that's what you do with the local button page. So for preset 12, I'll just show you the preset specified page here, and you can see for preset 12, I've got everything's the same. I have tap tempo, just like all my other presets, but on preset 11, instead of tap tempo, it was lead. And that's kind of a real practical use of local button pages. You just keep it really simple. You could have like a utility button that does different things depending on what preset that you're in. All right, so that concludes this deep dive into the RJM Mastermind PBC through the lens of my own rig. I hope you got a lot out of it. I hope it helps you come up with your own custom configuration for yours. If you don't have one, rjmmusic.com, that's where you can get them. And they also have great documentation. There's a great manual. There's a wiki on the editor, the online editor that we were looking at. And they have a forum where RJM directly answers questions and stuff. And so that's really good. So lots of documentation available to help you. So anyway, we're done. So thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe, and see you next time.